Hello and welcome to episode 95 of Stitched in Sweden. My name's Maria and you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Stitched in Sweden. Today I thought I would share with you some of the projects I've been working on in the month of October since the last time we spoke, and also my latest pattern release, which is going live today, October 20th. So let's jump right into it. I'll start with the knitting projects and then kind of move into some sewing and embroidery things as well. So, as I shared with you last time, the Blossom of Snow sweater is my latest pattern. This is the original version that I made for my youngest daughter, Nora. She is about to be 2 in November, and I made the second size, which is size B, and it's intended for 2 to 4-year-olds. So here it is. It has a bit of ease on her now. I'll show you some of the pictures that I took with her wearing it, but it's intended to be roomy, both so that you can fit some layers underneath, but also so that there's some room to grow. I also had showed, I think last time I also showed you the original version that I made for Eloise. Eloise's gray version, like Nora's. You can see it's kind of the inverse of colors here. Both of these versions are knit using Sandnesgarn Pergint, which is a 100% Norwegian wool. I think it has really nice stitch definition and it works really well for color work. It's a DK to worsted weight yarn, but I think it can be knitted at either gauge really. And Eloise, like I said last time, thought this one was too tickly for her. So in a bit of a panic, I made her another version, which was fine because I had some of this yarn already in my stash, and I happened to go to a fall market in the kind of ski resort town that we live close to a couple of weekends ago. And there's a yarn shop there, and they were having a sale on some of the Sandnesgarn Double Sunday, which is a 100% merino yarn that I used to knit this second version for Eloise, and she really likes it now. So it's comfortable for her, it doesn't tickle, and I think it turned out really nicely. For this version, I decided to do the collar in the same color as what's called color 2 in the pattern. Rather than doing the collar in the same color as the body. So here in this one you can see the collar is done in the same color as the body, and then color 2 is white, color 3 is this kind of greeny gold color, but for this one I just did cream and just kind of blended right into the cream of color 2. The colors are in order of appearance basically, from the top down. So this is her merino version. She tried it on for the first time the other day when I took some pictures of her for the pattern, and she actually even let me take a few pictures of her with her the original one on, and in those pictures she's actually wearing this one underneath. So while she still had this one on, we put this one on over top, and then it wasn't tickly, but I'm sure she was sweating. It's definitely getting cool here though. We've had a lot of mornings where it is below freezing, so this morning it was -6 degrees Celsius, whatever that might be in Fahrenheit. And then the other morning it was -9. So it's definitely getting to be time to have nice thick wool sweaters as one of their layers under their snowsuits or rain suits, depending on the day. So this is the Garn Double Sunday that I used for the main color of Eloise's sweater, and I've listed all the colors for the samples in I think I listed them in the pattern. I can't remember if I listed them in the pattern or only on the Ravelry page. They're definitely on my project pages for each of those sweaters, which you can find on Ravelry. In case you don't use Ravelry, you can also purchase this sweater from lovecrafts.com, and that is a place that I don't usually actually mention, but all of my knitting patterns are also available from Lovecrafts. So yeah, you can also check them out there. As a little special gift, I guess, for my YouTube viewers, I thought I would share a promotion code with you so that you can get the Blossom of Snow pattern for 25% off for the first 2 weeks. And if you want to use the code SNOW, then you can enter that in. I don't know if I can do a promotion on Lovecrafts, but if you are not able to purchase a pattern on Ravelry, just send me a message and I can get the pattern to you on Lovecrafts or a different way for also the 25% off. So just let me know. But the code will work in Ravelry, SNOW, S-N-O-W, for 25% off Blossom of Snow for the first 2 weeks from today, which is October 20th. Yeah, so that was kind of my main knitting since the last time I recorded. Obviously, I knit up this version pretty quickly because I want her to be able to wear it now. I'm going to sew in one of her name tag labels so that hopefully it won't get lost at school, and then she'll be ready to wear it. I thought you might be interested to see a little bit of the difference in gauge of the Pear Gynt sweater versus the Double Sunday. So the thing that I notice most is that the color work in this one is slightly higher up. So it should really be like that, but that means that the row gauge in this one is slightly more squished together. So there's more rows per 10 centimeters or 4 inches, however you're measuring it. And then as I was knitting this one, this is a size 4 to 6, which is a size C in the pattern. And since Eloise is just turning 4 in December, I decided to actually shorten the length of the body just slightly. And that was just kind of a conscious decision that I made since she's on the small end of that size range. So that's just something to keep in mind while you are knitting the pattern. If you think, you know, okay, I'm knitting the size 4 to 6, but I have a 4-year-old or I have a 6-year-old, maybe if you have a 6-year-old, maybe you want to lengthen just a little bit. But the sizes are based on kind of standard sizes for children in those age ranges. The pattern includes a schematic as well, so you can see based on your own child's measurements or the person you're knitting for what size would fit them. I only include the age ranges because sometimes people knit for, you know, gifts for kids or something, and then you might not have the child in front of you to measure them. So then it's nice to have kind of an age range as to what is the average size for that age, but obviously not everybody fits into an average, so it's just to keep in mind, but hopefully make it a little bit easier for you. Okay, so that is my only finished object this week. I also spent, or this month, I also spent some time knitting on my Aspen cardigan, which is a pattern from Brooklyn Tweed. It's a pattern by Michelle Wong for Brooklyn Tweed. I'm knitting this cardigan in Cascade. I meant to look up what it was called. I think it's called Cascade Eco Merino DK. It's definitely not the Cascade Eco, which is I think a bulky weight yarn, or at least an Aran weight yarn. That's Peruvian Highland wool. This is actually a Merino DK yarn from Cascade, and it's this particular yarn range is all natural, undyed, non-superwash yarn. I'm really enjoying knitting with it. It is a worsted spun yarn and it's soft. It has a nice texture. I think it has a nice stitch definition for cables. So last time I showed you I had knit one sleeve, and I actually ended up ripping out the whole sleeve cap and an additional 2 or so inches, and then starting the decreases for the sleeve 2 inches earlier, because I realized that in the pattern I had planned to knit the pattern has the cuff knit and then folded over, so it's like double length. So the ribbing part is yeah, twice as long basically, and then you're supposed to fold it over. And I didn't necessarily want to have it cuffed, so I decided to knit the ribbing a little bit shorter, and I forgot to account for that when I was measuring the length of the sleeve before starting the bind-offs for the sleeve caps. So after the last time I recorded, and I was looking at my sleeve and I was thinking, this sleeve is really long. I think it's too long. Where did I go wrong? And I looked back at that and thought, oh yeah, that's because I changed how I wanted to do the cuff. So it didn't take that long to rip out and re-knit that part. But I also knit the second sleeve. So here they are. They are hopefully the same size. Oh God, let's see. Yeah, they're the same size. Phew. They are obviously knit flat, and they will be seamed up the, you know, arm, and then seamed also onto the shoulder. I do typically like to knit projects that are knit in one piece in the round, but I think for a project like this that is quite labor intensive and it requires a lot of looking at the chart, because there's, for the front, for the sleeves there were 3 different charts, one for these cables, like left side cables, right side cables, and then the center cable. Those were each a different chart. And now I've started the back of the sweater, and this has 1, 2, 3, also this has 4 different cable patterns. So each of these side cables are a different pattern, and then there's this I think this one's called the interlocking cable. That's this from here, this part here, and that repeats itself on the other side. And then there's also the center cable again, as there was up the sleeve. So with a pattern that is as like chart intensive and just requires a lot of attention, and yeah, it just requires a lot of knitting. Like it's not stockinette in the round. I actually like the fact that it is knit flat and then seamed, because then you're only working on kind of small pieces at a time, so it feels more manageable. So if I was also knitting the front pieces at this time, those would also be different charts, and it just would be a lot of flipping back and forth between the charts, and yeah, I think it would just be too much. So I do like that this is seamed. If you have been watching me from the very beginning, back in like maybe 2015 or something, I knit a sweater for my husband, Thomas. It's called the Timberline sweater, I think. It's a pattern also from Brooklyn Tweed, heavily cabled, similar to this pattern. And that one was also knit in pieces and seamed, and it turned out really well with nice finish, so I'm not worried about that at all for this one. I'm looking forward to having this project completed because I would really like to wear it. I think it's going to be a super cozy layer. It has like a nice big shawl collar. I had forgotten to mention last time, I think I showed you my printed pattern, which isn't that easy to see, but this is the pattern, and it's obviously very long, but I'm actually only planning on knitting it as a cardigan length, like a regular cardigan length, so probably around my hip or just slightly above hip level. So for the back piece, just in case for some reason you might be knitting the same thing, the schematic showed me in the pattern that there was quite a few more stitches, and it's kind of at the bottom. It's knit from the bottom up, and it's kind of A-line shaped into the body. The number of stitches, or like the decreases, kind of stop around the waist level. So I decided to look at the stitch count at the waist and start with that many stitches rather than starting with the full original cast on number, because then my cardigan would have been really wide at the hip. So that's a modification that I made, and as a result I had to think about just adjusting I didn't actually end up adjusting the cables at all, because there's a little bit of a buffer space on the side of purl stitches, and so I think maybe instead of like 11 purl stitches or something, I have 6, and that was like how many that you had after you had completed these side decreases for the back. So I will obviously also make that modification for the 2 front pieces as well. So I'm excited to have it finished, but it's probably still going to be a few more weeks, if not months, before that one is off my needles. The last project that I worked on just slightly knitting wise is the Terrazzo Neck Junior. This is a pattern from Petite Knit, and I started this for Eloise. I'm knitting this in Woolfolk Luft. This is a blown yarn that has a cotton netting, kind of, I would say, and then it's merino that's blown in to that webbing. So it's a really fluffy yarn. I started on this because I think that it's important to have this layer when we live where we do, because it's quite cold in winter. But then I kind of started second guessing myself about whether or not this was a good yarn choice because of the cotton content mostly, and I just wasn't sure if it was going to be stretchy enough to be going off and on over her head. So I kind of stalled on that, but I will probably pick that up again soon or decide on a different yarn combination, which will most likely be a combination, because I probably will have to hold something double in my stash. I think the original pattern has some kind of combination of, I want to say DK weight held with lace mohair. I don't think that Eloise would enjoy having mohair around her neck and like near her mouth. I'm just thinking like it's a turtleneck kind of style, and I'm thinking, you know, when she's outside playing at school, it's gonna be cold, and then you're like kind of, you know, breathing on your, maybe you're breathing on your turtleneck, and then just like with the mohair it might get fuzzy and in her mouth. So kind of not sure, but I might hold a, if I don't continue with that version, I might hold a DK weight with a fingering, or just hold a fingering weight double or something along those lines. Or I could even hold a DK weight with like a single sort of like a singles fingering weight slash light fingering. So we'll see what happens there. So now I'll shift over to a couple of sewing projects that I completed in the last few weeks. I have a couple of projects that are cut out, yeah, behind me and on the floor, because oftentimes I do things in batches, and I think that's most efficient for me, where I'll, you know, get out all the patterns that I'm going to make and trace off any new sizes that I might need. I'll do all the tracing in one day or in the morning or something, and then I'll do all the cutting out, and I'll do all the cutting out of the fabrics, and then eventually get to sewing them also sort of in batches. So like now I had my dark thread in my overlocker, so I was sewing dark things, and then soon I'll switch to my light color thread, and I'll work on some of the projects that require light color thread. So it might seem kind of like an obvious thing, but for me it really helps to minimize the amount of times I'm having to change thread, and it just kind of like puts it into production mode that I'm able to sew up things more efficiently. So I made two things for Eloise. Eloise does get most of the new clothes. Nora does get some as well, but of course both of my daughters are born in the winter. Nora's born in November and Eloise is born at the end of December, and so their size range, their size lines up very well with each other, like for the season. So Nora has been able to wear all of the clothes that I made for Eloise. So it's really convenient in that way that, you know I'm making these clothes, they're gonna fit Eloise for a while, and then in 2 years Nora will have them. But sometimes I do make Nora new things too. It was very cute the other day that Eloise said to me, "Mama, that's enough new things for me. I get so many nice things for you, and sometimes Nora needs new things too," which just was the sweetest. But I explained to her that she's the one who's growing out of her clothes, and Nora has so many clothes that used to be Eloise's when she was little, so she thought that was good too. So these are going to be hard to see, but these are the modern jogger pants, and this is a pattern from Brindle and Twig. Brindle and Twig is one of the main pattern companies that I use for children's clothing. I really like Brindle and Twig patterns, and also Lowland Kids. They both publish mostly patterns for knit fabrics, jersey fabrics, which is primarily what I sew with for kids, and also for myself actually. This pattern, the Modern Jogger, is one that this is my 4th version of it. This is in a brushed sweatshirting fabric that has a little bit of stretch to it. I used a ribbed fabric for the waistband as well as the cuffs. So you can see the details of it when it's a little bit more bleached out. They are nice and dark black in real life, but I'll leave it like this so that you can see. They have little knee pads here, and in previous versions I've done various stitching on here, so like either stitched lines horizontally across them, or even I did like a diagonal quilt stitch for some other ones that I made in the past. These ones I just sewed them directly on as is, but they also have front pockets and back pockets. So these are just super cozy, get a lot of wear. Eloise has this black pair and a dark green pair, and Nora now has the two pairs that I made for Eloise when she was 2, which are I think it's kind of a light pink bamboo French terry and a kind of clay, rose clay colored French terry as well. So those are just like a nice kind of slightly thicker, warmer sweatpant that's perfect for daycare and just, you know, everything, because they can also wear like a merino legging or cotton legging underneath those, so that's an option for an extra layer and added warmth. But they're warmer even by themselves than just a cotton legging. So the other project that I sewed for Eloise is another brindle and twig pattern, and this one is called the Raglan dress, I think. Raglan sweatshirt dress, maybe. And I sewed this out of a French terry. I have her name tag in here and her size 4T. And I did the same black ribbing for the cuffs and the hem. And this French terry is a floral that I found on an online shop in Sweden that I hadn't ordered from before. I think it turned out nice. And this is just like a nice layer too, because it's like a sweatshirt that just goes to like just above her knees. So you can wear it like a sweatshirt, you know, you could just have a shirt, a t-shirt underneath or a long sleeve shirt underneath. But you can also wear it as a dress if you want. So sometimes she wears it, you know, with jeans underneath, or sometimes with leggings or tights. And I think she likes it. I pulled this out of the laundry, so there's all sorts of, you know, Play-Doh and food bits on it. But the good thing about this fabric is that it is very camouflaging. So yeah. The original pattern for this one comes with a pocket on the front, and I was excited about that at first until I realized that it was just a faux pocket, so I did not include it on this version. On another version that I made for Eloise, I actually just cut out kind of a patch pocket that I sewed on that looks like a hoodie pocket, so I think it's maybe called like a kangaroo pocket, you know, looks like this. You can stick your hands in. So another version that she has a pocket like that, and I'm sure she would have liked a pocket on this one, but I literally had used every scrap of that fabric, because I also used that fabric to as the kind of zipper lining in the wool suit that I made for Nora. I think I showed you that last time. And I thought, oh, I have plenty left, so no problem. I have plenty of that fabric, I thought, so I could just cut out randomly these, you know, zipper facings for Nora. And then it was very tight to get this sweater dress out of the rest of it. So sometimes I do that a little bit too much, but yeah. Anyway, I think that is everything that I sewed. The kind of last, no, that's not everything I sewed, of course. The other thing that I sewed is for myself. The other thing I finished sewing is for myself. It's this long sleeve t-shirt. I'll stand up so you can see. It is a striped t-shirt, obviously. And it is I guess what I wanted to say, not was that it was a striped t-shirt, but that it is a viscose jersey shirt, which I almost always use cotton jersey when I'm sewing. Oftentimes it's a 95% cotton, 5% elastic blend. Sometimes it's 92% cotton, 8% elastic. Those are kind of the two standards that I typically work with. I rarely use viscose jersey, honestly, because I think it's a little bit cold, but it works well as a layer underneath things, but like I think it's more appropriate for a summer t-shirt rather than a winter shirt. And then the other type of fabric that I use most regularly is merino jersey, which is just delightful. So I might show you a little bit of that actually. Ran out of memory there. Okay, so one of the reasons that I wanted to make this shirt is because I am kind of looking for a go-to long sleeve shirt, crew neck or v-neck shirt. And I knew that I want to have that kind of go-to shirt for making with merino jersey as a nice underlayer for wearing under sweaters or just wearing on its own during the winter or fall or whenever, because it's always cold here. And I knew that if I made it out of this viscose jersey, it would be more similar to the merino jersey fabric that I like to use, rather than if I made it out of cotton jersey, because the cotton elastic jersey is a bit more firm, and even though it has a lot of stretch to it, it feels thicker and kind of sits more structured than either the viscose jersey or the merino jersey. So that was one of the main reasons that I wanted to try out this pattern in this fabric. So I'll tell you what the pattern is. This is the Nora shirt, which is funny because it's my daughter's name. It's the Nora t-shirt pattern, and that's from So La La, and it only comes with short-sleeved option, which I think is like a little bit surprising, because if you're making a t-shirt pattern, I think it's pretty easy and pretty common to also include other options for sleeves. This particular pattern only comes as short sleeve with both a crew neck and a v-neck option. Yeah, so I would just like it to come with sleeves, because I think that is not too much to ask, but it doesn't come with sleeves. So I took my favorite sleeve pattern, which is for the True Bias Nico top, and I've actually modified those sleeves, but because I've modified them, I know that they fit me really well. So I added a full bicep adjustment to the Nico sleeves, and also kind of made that full bicep adjustment go all the way down to my forearm, because otherwise it's just too tight. But because I have sort of perfected the fit of those sleeves, I just put that sleeve pattern over the Nora sleeves, which are short sleeved. And the Nora sleeves are very straight on the sides, and they're quite long for being a short sleeve shirt. And so basically I put the Nico top sleeves over it, matched them up at the armpits, and then followed the taper of the Nico top and the length. And I didn't worry too much about the armhole fitting in. It worked, so that was lucky. But yeah, I am super happy with the fit of this. I like this pattern because it feels quite fitted in the top part. It doesn't have a dropped shoulder, which a lot of t-shirt patterns do. I have often used the Genie Ready to Sew t-shirt pattern in the past, which comes with short sleeve and long sleeved and like dress length and lots of different versions. I've used that pattern in the past, and it has a slightly drop sleeved and also just like a more overall boxy fit. What I do like about the Nora is that this one is fitted, the upper part is fitted, it's definitely not a drop shoulder, it's fitted across the bust, and then it's not tight in the body, but it's also not overly boxy or loose. So it really now checks all the boxes for me, which makes me excited to sew it up in a couple of the beautiful merino jersey fabrics that I have. These fabrics are all from the fabric store, which is We Are the Fabric Store online, based in New Zealand and Australia, I think. I have quite a nice stash of this fabric because I use it to make long underwear layers for my girls and myself. And with their size now, and my size actually even, it's just, even though this is expensive fabric, it's still way more cost effective to buy this fabric and make some clothes for them in this fabric, even make clothes for me. Like, it's still more cost effective than buying wool long underwear for either of us, any of us. So with like 1.3 meters of this fabric, I can, which I think, let's see, 1.3 meters, I want to say that's like $36 per meter. I'm not positive. But with 1.3 meters, I can make a pair of leggings for each of the girls and a long sleeve shirt. So if a full long underwear set basically for each of them with 1.3 meters. And to buy that, I think would be at least like $50 each. So it's definitely a saving there. And then for me as well, I need about a meter to make a long sleeve shirt for myself. I'm gonna like pay attention to exactly how much I need now that I know that this shirt is gonna work. That's why I use this less expensive fabric, but I still like this fabric a lot, to kind of test it out before I use some of these. So these are just some of my beautiful merinos that I have, but these are kind of the ones that I pulled out that I might be using to make some shirts for myself and maybe the girls this fall and winter. I also really like to use this fabric to make beanies for the girls. It's really nice to have a sewn merino beanie in addition to maybe a knitted hat. And the beanie project is a good one to use up some scraps of the merino because you don't want to let any of that go to waste. So I actually have one cut out right now for Eloise. In progress at the moment. Part of my batch sewing is also like doing everything that I can with all the cutout projects in one thread color on the same machine at a time. So like now I had done all the overlocking and I did all the pressing. So these are the two beanie pieces, which will then be sewn together. So it's like a double thickness beanie, and then the brim is folded up, and these are just really nice to have. Nora has one that again used to be Eloise's in this nice wine red color, and she also has a rust orange one, and right now Eloise just has a kind of cornflower blue one, so then I'll finish up this teal colored one for her soon. And the great thing about these as well is that they can either be worn cuffed or not. So you can cuff them down quite tight so that you have like a tight hat, and then you can even wear it like underneath a helmet or something, which is perfect for them. So yeah, that is all my sewing projects. Let's see if I want to tell you anything else. Oh, for this one, I'll just show you. You can see maybe. Let's see. On the neckband, I've done a bound neckband here rather than like a neckband that you would fold in half and then serge to the edge. I don't have an example for you. I do have an example. This is kind of like just a folded neckband, so it's a rectangular piece of fabric that's folded in half and then just serged onto the edge of the main fabric. And this works well for when you have a ribbing fabric like this one. I had a matching sort of rib, but sometimes I find that when you're using a jersey, like cotton jersey, or this viscose also would have done the same, if you use this kind of neckband, that it can get floppy and kind of waffly when it doesn't have that ribbing to kind of pull it back together. So in that case, I like to use a bound neckband instead. And that's where you have a rectangle of fabric. I usually sew it into, press it into thirds. Then I serge one of the edges on and lay it so that the serged edge is then sandwiched between, I don't know how I'm gonna explain this. Okay, it's like main shirt, then you have your rectangle, which is then folded, 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 and you make a little sandwich over the serged edge, and then do your top stitching along the outside, which I do with a cover stitch machine. Nobody asked, probably nobody wanted to know that, but I prefer that bound neckband because it just lays flatter. I don't feel like I have to iron it because I just don't have time to iron t-shirts. It's just not a thing for me. Okay, the last thing that I worked on, which I thought I would show you because a lot of you were really interested in the embroidery that I shared last time. I am still working on the embroidery for my sweatshirt. And here you can see my M progress. It's almost done. I added a little bit more, a few more colors, because I felt like it needed kind of this dark gold brown olive color. Dark brown gold olive, wow, that was a lot of colors. But yeah, this one, it needed kind of to ground it a little bit, and then I also added this more pumpkin-y gold color as well. So I just have a little bit on this side left to do, and then I might fill in a couple more French knots in any spaces that there might be. The thing that took time for me this week on this sweatshirt is that I unpicked the cuffs and the hem. So the sleeve cuffs, the neckband, and the hem have all been unpicked. And I did that because the ribbing that I had, that I shared last time, was slightly darker and more yellow toned than the main fabric that I have for this sweatshirt, and it was just really bothering me. I know it's a really small thing. I haven't been able to find a ribbing fabric that matches nicely, so I'm going to go ahead and try to use the same fabric as I used for the main sweatshirt for the neckband, the cuffing, and the hem. I knew that I was going to have to undo the hem anyway. Actually, the hem's already in it's already in this fabric. But I was going to have to undo the hem anyway because I wanted to shorten the length of the sweater by, I need to try it on again, but I think I want to shorten it by 1.5 inches or 2 inches because it was just too long. And so while I was doing that, I thought, I'll just do all of it because it was just bothering me too much, and I will be happier with it matching, even if having the matching cuffing, since it's not a ribbed fabric, it might be not sitting perfectly. We'll just have to see. I'll give you an update on that next time. A lot of you asked if I was following some kind of tutorial or pattern or something for doing this embroidery. I'm not. I've seen these kind of embroidered monograms a lot on Instagram on various accounts, and so I'm just using kind of inspiration from that. If you're interested in getting started with embroidery, I would suggest going on Pinterest and searching embroidery stitches. There you can find different tutorials or kind of stitch dictionaries on just different embroidery stitches that you can then try out on small bits of fabric. It's fun to just do a little on your shirt, or, you know, on a tea towel or something like that. Yeah, I definitely recommend this. I showed it to you last time. I don't remember what it's called, but this washable, sticky it's some kind of like stabilizer that you can like draw your pattern on and then stick it right onto your project, and then when you're done, it just washes away instantly. It's amazing. I definitely recommend that if you're stitching on knit fabrics at all. I have used these little samplers. I finished this one, and then I've mostly finished this one. But this was like a little kit. I think that I bought this at, I want to say that I bought this one at Fancy Tiger in Denver. But I think she has an Etsy shop too. So doing a little sampler like this is a good way to kind of learn some different embroidery stitches, and then you can take kind of what you learn from that and incorporate it into another project. So like this outer one will tell you like, okay, these are French knots, and you know, somewhere else is the blanket stitch or the fishbone stitch, and then the instructions for how to make each of these stitches is on the inside of this little booklet. And these came as kits with, I don't think they had the hoop, but they had fabric that had the pattern outlined on it in some kind of ink, like printed on the fabric, so then you could use that as an outline for your stitching. So that's kind of like some kind of embroidery kit like that. I think is a good way to get into embroidery if you don't know how to do it and if you've never done it before. But embroidery is definitely very kind of free form, I would say, as opposed to like cross stitch where you have fabric that has, you know, little holes in it at very even points where you should make these little X's, and you should count exactly how many X's that you need in one color, and which is also fun, and I've done a lot of cross stitch too. But embroidery is definitely more kind of go with the flow, make your leaf as big as you want, you know, just, yeah, it's just different. So if you feel like you don't know how to do it, I don't think you should be as intimidated, because like you could literally get a piece of fabric, draw a little doodle on it, and look up some embroidery stitches that you could use to sort of fill in that space. So that's all I wanted to share on that. Just to remind you that you can get 25% off the Blossom of Snow sweater for the first 2 weeks from October 20th using the code SNOW, S-N-O-W, at checkout on Ravelry. And if you're not using Ravelry, just get in touch with me and I can get you that pattern with the same discount. So until next time, happy sewing, happy knitting, and thanks for joining me. Bye!